In the 70s, 80s, and 90s was the best time to be alive. It was the best era for storytellers and songwriters, and their cult classics became the anthems and soundtracks that shaped our lives. After the Telecommunications Act of 1996, the corporate takeover began, starting with the local radio stations, concert venues, and promoters. Soon after, the consolidation of the studios and the media. Within a few decades, these companies had control over everything. The concepts, everything that was written, produced, distributed, and eventually consumed. Albert Einstein once said, "Everything that is great and inspiring is created by the individual who can labor in freedom." As artists, we believe that the free flow of ideas is vital to a strong culture. It is long past time for a new, independent entertainment ecosystem. An ecosystem that is not governed by gatekeepers and the corporations, but rather by those who create and consume it. At Creato, we are building that new ecosystem. A system that will empower filmmakers, musicians, entertainers, and podcasters to freely create and distribute all of their content in one location. A system where they can control their earning potential, protect their intellectual property, and engage directly with and build communities around their loyal fans. As we begin the next phase of development, we would love you to be a part of this, to restore freedom for all artists, including filmmakers, musicians, comedians, writers, producers, podcasters, and things that don't even exist yet. We believe that the future of entertainment will be delivered here on Creato.
4, 3, 2, 1.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Alpha Warrior Show. I'm your host, Alpha. Let me tell you guys, do we have a show lined up for you guys? Let me start off by saying, these two extraordinary guests that I have, one of them is setting an Alpha record. We have never had a returning guest this fast. And you're saying, well, why Alpha? Why have a returning guest back so fast? Well, because you guys loved him and you guys were like, we need more of him. And then on top of that, we said in that show right before we wrapped up, it'd be pretty cool if we can get this voice and this voice and this voice together. And we pulled a lot of that off. So who am I talking about? We're having OpCue back again, or not Op, depending on how you refer to him. And then who else? None other than Dr. Jan Halper Hayes. You heard that right. Yes. You are going to see her on the screen in just a few minutes. I know you guys are stoked. I know you guys got a lot of questions. For those of you that were knowing the show was going to happen, you guys sent me a bunch of questions. I'll try to get to some of those. But before we do, you guys know, Alpha's in a fight and streaming ain't free. So let's get to two quick sponsors and then the show's getting started. So Big Brother, you guys, I partnered with GoldCo, the biggest main sponsor that I have. And by now you've heard about the digital dollar idea that's being talked about. And how could the government monitor and possibly control the purchases and financial activity? Well, it's no secret, my opinion, Big Brother. But unlike the digital dollar, precious metals, I'm talking physical gold and silver can't be manipulated with the click of a button. You guys know Bank of America closed down my bank accounts. Didn't take them very long back in April, May of 2021. So if you like the sound of being free from Big Brother, head over to alphalikesgold.com to get your free 2024 now gold IRA kit from my partners at GoldCo. It shows how to diversify some of your hard-earned money with physical gold and silver, even if it's still in a retirement account. I mean, they make it very quick, very simple. And as an American citizen, you can get up to $10,000 in free silver with qualified orders. At the very least, you want to be educated about your options, right? So head over to Alpha Likes Gold, get your free 2024 gold IRA kit. And if you got a lot of it already, send some to Alpha, because I'm never going to say no, and I could use some. And then our next and final sponsor, and then we are commercial free. You guys know the way I roll to the end of the show. America's favorite mustache. Not too late. Christmas is right around the corner, you procrastinators. Mr. Mike Lindell, MYPILLOW at my store, promo code Alpha. I'll let him say it, and we'll be back in 60 seconds with two amazing people, everybody.
I'm excited to announce that we're bringing back our best offer ever on our original My Slippers. You save $90 a pair with your promo code. And now My Slippers come in even more sizes. Smaller sizes, larger sizes, wide sizes, and all new styles and colors. Get them for your friends, your family, your neighbors, everyone you know. What makes My Slippers different is my exclusive 4-layer design that you're not going to find in any other slippers. My Slippers' patented layers make them ultra comfortable, extremely durable, and they help relieve stress on your feet. I'm so confident that you and everyone you know are going to love My Slippers that I'm extending my 60-day money-back guarantee until March 1st, 2024, making them the best Christmas gifts ever. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen now. Use your promo code to save $90. That's only $49.98 a pair. Quantities won't last long, so please order now.
Mike Lindell, everybody. And you guys always forget, it's not just My Pillow store, my store. Promo code Alpha works at both of those. Let me bring on our returning guest first, OpCue. Thanks for coming back, brother. How you been?
Hey, brother. Nice to be back on. I couldn't resist knowing that the other guest you had planned was, so there we are. And, everything, I hope everyone is blessed, So glad to be back. I'm excited to have a conversation today.
Well, let me ask you this, Op. Are you as excited as I am about the guest that we're about to bring on?
I'm pretty excited, I've been telling some people it was coming, I told them I don't know when they're going to see it. It might be, but I told them it was happening. So
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, people were blowing up my DMs. Ask her this, ask her that, ask her this. I'm like, you guys realize, I only get 60 minutes, right? We'll do a part 2. We'll do a part 3. I'm sure of it. Let me bring on, not that people weren't here for you, OpCue, because we know they were, but the one we're all excited for, Dr. Jan Halper Hayes. How are you doing, ma'am?
I'm doing great, and it's so good to be with you. You've been so patient until I could finally find an open time that I could just be with you, relaxed, not stressed. So thank you. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that OpCue is on as well. He had DM'd me, and I said, that's going to be great, because I think he's one of the best that I follow.
No, absolutely. And I'm going to change our cameras around just a little bit. There we go. Just to make everything look pretty on the screen. Well, first, let me tell you guys both, thanks for taking time. I know we're at that holiday crunch time. People are trying to get planning. People are trying to get presents. Procrastinators, I'm guilty. I know, trying to get those last minute deals. But I know this is a busy time. So thank you guys both for taking time out of your schedules to spend it with me and my audience. They're definitely going to appreciate it. And it's, when I do shows like this, especially when we cover content that's considered fringe or conspiratorial, I have a very diverse audience, and I share this with you guys up front so you kind of know, who's listening. I got an audience that I call them they're my advanced red pillars. They even educate me Alpha, there's more to it than right? So that's my advanced elite red pillars. And then I got my crew. They just took the red pill and they're just oh my God, we got to save the world. It's all coming in. We only got 60 seconds. I'm relax, take a breath. I'm there with you. And then I have, my other audience is that's just man, I don't know. I don't know, Fox News told me this, I'm pulling them away, but it's a very well-balanced audience, so that's kind of the spectrum of the people that'll be listening to you guys tonight. To just kind of take into consideration, when we do talk about this. So there's some people that they need that, a lot of times, me and my guests, we make the assumption that everybody's kind of up to par with us, but there is a large amount of people that we are going to give them their first dose of, hey, this is what's really going on. And you need to research it and look into it. But with that, Op, I'll let you go first. Just give us a real brief who you are, kind of what you've been doing, and then we'll give Dr. Jan Halper a lot of time to explain it.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'm pretty much been doing for a few years now, going on, I don't know how many years now, but basically just been trying to help people get caught up and connect the dots and learn what they need to learn and unlearn and relearn, re-education, information warfare, So that's it, and I've been getting, as of recently, suspiciously, I've been getting censored quite heavily on X. So basically consistent shadow banning with search ban, search suggestion ban, and often, like, sometimes ghost ban, and also deboosting, right? And also sometimes actual physical suspensions. So first it was like a day, then it was like 3 going on 4 days, okay? And who knows what they're going to do next, right? And it's so bad, the censorship now, for some reason. I don't know if it's because of Grok, or if it's because of AI, or if it's because of rogue moderators. I think it's rogue moderators, and I saw someone post a screenshot that Grok said, "Hey, it's rumor has it there's rogue moderators." Grok, even there's a screenshot. Like, I've seen people send it. People are great with the Grok. They ask the good questions, right? So I think that's part of the phase of the wake up operation right now. And I'm not sure exactly who's running that, but I don't know. It's the algorithm needs some work. Something's up with the algorithm. I have a feeling it's because they released Premium Plus, like, to pay for Grok, $20. Because of that, everyone who was just regular Premium, you're like mid-grade. You're not like top shelf anymore. You're mid-grade unless you're paying $20 a month for this AI, you're mid-grade. Like, you're gonna know. I don't know, something is up. I know a lot of other people are noticing. They're saying, oh, and actually, I'm looking at a post right now from Elon, and it says it's unavailable. So he's got the tombstone on his account. The tombstone, um, this is a type of censorship where the top of the thread shows, and then the remainder of the thread is invisible. It says this is unavailable like 10 times, 100, like however many threads you have, deep, unavailable, right? So I'm looking at a post right now from Elon, and it says this post is unavailable. So I don't know. Maybe it's happening to everyone. Like, I'm not sure, like, what's going on. But something suspicious is up, and I think they want the people to catch on. Like, I think they want the people to be like, oh, like, this whole Grok thing came around about a month ago. That's when all this random shadow banning and ghost banning and censorship and unavailable posts started happening, right? So I think they need the people to kind of wake up for themselves. Like, they need them to see it for themselves and say something. And because they're bringing me back, like, they're unsuspending me. It says you're permanently suspended, and then they bring me back. So I have a feeling there is some white hat operators, of course, inside of X, and there is, of course, some rogue operators that are not yet removed. It has to be, right? So the ones who don't like me, they're ignoring my appeals, they're suspending, they're ghost banning, they're throttling, they're doing everything they can, right? And people are noticing, and they're speaking up about it. And they kind of have to lay off a little bit, but then they put it back on me. Like, they lay off like a day or two, bam, right back on me. Because I'm telling you, I used to be pulling heavy numbers. Like, I used to be waking up way more people. The numbers matter, right? So
there's no doubt about that at all, Op. And as a matter of fact, everybody seems to find it that it consistently started happening right around mid-October. Is like all of a sudden something happened, and this either new algorithm or the switch was hit on something. But you're definitely not alone on that one.
right.
The one place that we see that it seems like the censorship isn't hurting, there's still some, but it's not as bad, is in these virtual town halls known as the X spaces. And I know we've all been kind of capitalizing on that to get the word out. And with that, Dr. Jan Halper Hayes, ma'am, first of all, thank you for saying I was patient. But in my audience know this, I always say God's timing, not mine.
Yes.
Everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. And right now, we're getting to finish up the year with you guys with so many questions people have and concerns about 2024, the moneymaker year. What's it going to look like? How's it going to play? But for those in my audience that are like, why is everybody so excited? Who is this woman aside from this beautiful star that you have with us tonight? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and kind of what qualifies you to be here with us tonight, and give us some information?
Well, I'm trained as a psychologist. I worked in business because the supervisor that was training me saw that I got very impatient with people that didn't really want to make a move. In fact, I had said to one patient, with great exasperation, I don't know why you come back week after week. All you're doing is mentally masturbating here. And he pulled me aside and said, 7 or 6 in the morning till 10 at night with patients, that's not going to work for you. So I opened up the phone book. I was in New York City at the time, and it was when some affirmative action laws had come in as well. So I just started calling personnel directors, telling them, I'm a trained psychotherapist. I have a business background. Can I come and talk to you? Because I have some training programs. And that's how it started. And eventually I built a consulting firm that was in New York and San Francisco. And fast forward, I ended up moving 22 years ago to London because I was a single mom. I was offered a great job, and the job came with 8 weeks vacation. And everyone over in Europe and the UK, when the kids have half term, which they have half term like every 6 weeks, there's just this attitude of take the time off. I mean, it just created the perfect work-life balance for me. And I was a partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers Consulting, and then IBM bought us. My specialty grew to be not only leadership and strategy, but in mergers and acquisitions. And over the course of my career, I have probably trained at least 30,000 different executives and managers. And it turned out that one that I've stayed in touch with for probably 25 years is pretty high up at the Department of Defense. And he said, would you come and be on this task force? Because what we need is someone who knows how to read the temperature about the resistance to change, the acceptance of change, what are the blocks, what are the mindsets. And I said, yeah, that would be great. That would be absolutely great. I'd love it. And I've always been on the volunteer side of politics. I was the global vice president of Republicans overseas. There was a terrible tax law that was coming in that was going to affect all 9 million expats. And so we set up 51 country chapters. And in fact, from 2014 and then through the election cycle, we actually did conference calls with every candidate except for Kasich and Trump. And then we launched the very first straw poll just before the Iowa straw poll. And it was Marco Rubio and Rand Paul that were leading at that time. And I did that right through Trump becoming president. And then I was asked to be on his transition team. And for me, when I was 18, I had to fill out my first tax return. No, I was 17. And I said to my parents, why can't I check off which agency I want my money to go to? They said, it doesn't work that way. And, I mean, why are you taking my money and wasting it? All the way back then, I felt that. But what I was able to do was develop a plan to be able to reduce costs and reduce the number of people in the government. So, I mean, there's more to it than that, but there are over 600 volunteers in the Commerce Department who could have helped me. So yeah, that's what I would love to do this next go around, to be able to do that. So we'll see.
We definitely need it. That's for sure.
Oh, I just want to know is if we get to fire everyone and then make them apply all over again for their jobs. If we're going to a republic and they work for the corporation, no one's told me the answer to that yet.
Well, I mean, and you hear a lot of people talk about it because it's, it's open source information. You have a lot of these politicians, they're worth, $200,000, $300,000. and they go and they take on a job that, pays somewhere between 150 and maybe another $200,000. And then after 2 years or 4 years, they're worth $8 or $9 million. And people are like, hold on, like, let me do my Marine Corps math here. Like, something's funny here. And,
Absolutely.
And we see, there's, whether it's the FTX, scandal that was going on, there's, the lobbyists that go on. It's just, you see that government has gone so big that it's really easy to hide the change under the seat cushions, away from the American people. And then obviously we got transparency issues and things like that are going on. When you going back to the task force that you said, and they wanted you to look at people, what was the main consistent thing you saw in the people that you were observing? What was like the focal point of what people were paying attention to? Was it the economy? Was it politics? What was it?
First off, it was me getting back on social media because my biz shrink had been shadow banned. And so I created another account, but that was so I could get my news pretty much. I didn't really do a lot of posting. It took me a while to figure out things. And then, frankly, that August 3rd interview that put me on the map was the best thing that could have happened. Not that I wasn't overwhelmed for many months about it, but it gave me a connection to people. And so I was able to actually spend time learning things that are going on, relationships that had been happening. My most that I knew about Q was if I'd listened to Christian Patriot News or Street Fighter or whatever his name is, Patriot Street Fighter, and he would go through the Q drops. And then people were saying, but that's what she's talking about. But see, I had been part of this task force since 2018. But there wasn't a lot going on at that point. And it just slowly grew. We added a few more people. We have a forensic anthropologist, a forensic accountant. We have 2 social psychologists that are as liberal as can be, which is really important because they can translate things for us that we can't possibly understand. And now it's been great because it's evolved for me that I really truly can take a pulse, and I can end up offering ways in which, because what I care about most is I want people to be centered. I don't want them to be thrown off by what's going on. And we've got some people, I had a couple of people reported to me that they were character assassinators of some people that I really care about, that I've known outside of X. And for me, I had to bait them because it doesn't matter what someone tells me about someone, and it doesn't matter that I might have read what they posted or seen a track of that. So I baited them, and that's why there are the memes of tuna Halper instead of tuna helper and a few of those other things. But the worst that happened was we referred one person to the FBI because that was far more serious. Those 3 that I called out, they somehow think they got referred to the FBI as well, but they never hear anything. I think they're closet liberals. I am convinced they're closet liberals. They are paid. They do not get anything right. They tell everyone I'm British. And I had, when I was on Trump's transition team, there was a conference with the Fabian Society, which is a liberal society, but it was a panel, and they had people from the Heritage Foundation come in, and I was talking about Trump. Well, they're convinced I'm a socialist. They're convinced I'm part of Tavistock because I'm a psychologist. And you know what what concerns me about it is the people that listen to them and don't do any research. They just take their word and then they jump on and attack me. And now they think that, you know, because some site, like an irrelevant site, has me listed. I was born in 1994. Then someone else said I was born in 1950. I am not 73 years old. I just want to make that point very clear. But you know, these things go on, and I was so really without words at first to understand that this is how people would conduct themselves. And the fact that these guys also support Lin Wood and go after all these other people, you can't have a pure heart and do that. So the other thing that I do is I love when I can find a liberal, but then I look at all of the replies. Yep. And even since August, what has been so exciting is that the replies challenging these liberals, not buying into these liberals, has grown exponentially. And that to me is really encouraging. I was asked the other day if because I always get asked what percentage of awakeness, and I'm still kind of 66, 70%. And I don't know if it's going to go higher, because if you have any understanding of mass formation psychosis, the people that don't think for themselves and just trust, if you're a scientist or a politician or a media person and they don't use their brain at all, it's going to be hard for them to come around.
If you can, real quick, Dr. Jan, can you just give the audience a little explanation of what mass psychosis is, so they kind of can grasp that? And
yes, with pleasure. It can be called mass formation psychosis. It can be called mass hypnosis. The bottom line is that the trust is put to an outside person. They don't think for themselves, and they become very obedient because they have responded to the fear porn. And that's the simplest way of understanding it. And you just wonder how they could be so brain dead and close-minded to any other information that might contradict. I had a friend, we have all been canceled by different friends. Well, one friend canceled me because I was on HCQ and ivermectin and I wouldn't get vaxxed. So I couldn't go to her house anymore. And, you know, there were just all sorts of things like that. But she said, why are you doing that? I said, well, my doctor gave it to me, first off. She said, but I listened to the WHO and the WHO said it's not good. I said, why don't you go to 2015 when Fauci and the WHO actually recommended HCQ? Oh no, but that's not what they're saying now. And I still don't know how to deal with that, other than to say, I'm not even going to try. Because if I tried, they would think I'm trying to tell them that they're wrong. And that is not what I want to do ever. And so I have learned to take a step back and realize that we are going to have 20 to 30% of the people that it will be worse than cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is when you get information that totally scrambles your mind, upsets, and you don't know how to deal with the fact that what you believed is no longer right, but you don't know how to get to the new information. And there's all that resistance that goes on. Oh, how could I have been fooled? How could I be so stupid? I'm not stupid. People are telling me, I can't be wrong. And so that is something that I look at. One of the themes right now, Alpha, is people saying, well, I used to not be good, but I'm good now. And I really want to tell people, part of what God puts us through are those lessons so we get to that place. You know, we all started out wanting to be good people. We end up having different environmental factors, parenting, schooling, and we get to know ourselves. And so some people will sit back and just be nice and follow all instructions. And some people's nature is not to do that. It is really, and it doesn't mean rebelling in a bad way, but it's wanting to hold on to one's identity. And I'm finding that people are becoming more comfortable in that. But what I would say in relation to that is I just want them to forgive themselves. It doesn't matter. You were bad yesterday. Who cares? Who are you today? What are you doing today? And what are you going to do tomorrow? That's all that really matters. And if you don't forgive yourself, then you're busy beating yourself up. You know, you got that little whip that you're, oh, how could I have done that? Oh, I did. Oh, I should be ashamed. You know what? Feel ashamed about it and let it go. We have all done things that we feel ashamed about, and we will probably do more things. So it's gotten pretty exciting for me because I get to deal with the psychological issues and feel like I'm making a difference in a way that helps people understand themselves better and are grounded. I want their feet on the ground, and that's the most, and I want them trusting themselves.
You know, and I'll get you in here real quick, OpCue, but to comment to what you said, Doctor, you know, I don't know if you know, but I was a cop for almost a decade and a half, 14 and a half years. And, you know, you see the Hollywood side of law enforcement, right? But I tell people that's about 20% of law enforcement. The other 80% is split up into two things. 40% of that time, we are a secretary with a gun. We're just writing, we're writing reports. Like that's what we're doing. The other half of that 80%, the other 40% is, you know, we're therapists with a gun. You know, we show up, you know, people don't call 911 because they're having a good time. You know,
Right.
it's like the climax of just something really bad or really scary. And you're thrown in there, and all of a sudden a stranger is supposed to make other strangers' problems all of a sudden be remedied, you know, and all this has to happen in a few minutes. And, you know, I was 25, 26 when I started. So you know, I had my experience from being a veteran, and then you just kind of, you know, your experience through life, and you kind of try to use your own experiences along with the law to kind of apply it to people's scenarios. And what I learned is the truth can be right in front of somebody, but if they don't like it, they'll come up with every excuse of why that can't be the truth.
It's Photoshop.
You know, it is. And I applied to this, and this is where I'm going to go to you, Op, and then I'll bring you in on this too, Doc, because I see, you know, you deal with this a lot too as well, Op.
Oh yeah.
Is we see people right now in the movement, you know, where the government's been lying to us, you know, big tech's been controlling this stuff, you know, there's all this stuff going on, you know, across the world. But then the second you tell them, well, you know, there's this going on. Well, yeah, but the history book says this. And then I remind them, well, you just finished telling me that the government's been lying to you. These institutions have been lying to you. So why do you keep referring back to the knowledge they put in front of you instead of you kind of searching it out for yourself? And granted, there's a lot of stuff I know, because even to this day, I hear things and I'm just like, you're really pushing me to the edge on, you know, what is and what isn't. And it goes back to what you said, Doc, you know, that cognitive dissonance. And then here's my question to you, Op, and it comes, you know, takes me back to the, you know, famous movie we all reference quite often, The Matrix. There's some people that will fight to keep the Matrix alive because they can't deal with the truth.
Yeah.
What do you say to that, Op?
Yeah, it's basically builds upon what Dr. Jan just said. So basically, it's not only is it cognitive dissonance and mass formation hypnosis, but it's also a Dunning-Kruger effect, and they have a reality tunnel. So it's basically they're That's all they can see. They don't want to see anything else. They don't want to hear anything else. They don't want to do research. They just want to stay comfortable how they are with the way the matrix is, with going to work and paying taxes and being a slave and being a sheeple and taking injections and consuming big pharma, right? And consuming all the poisons the way the governments have lied to us and put poison in every which way. They're fine with that. No problem. Fluoride, no problem. Give me that. Everything, they take it, no problem. Right? So there's like, some will be lost forever. The Q drops told us. It made it sound like it would be a smaller percentage, but 20 to 30% right now, I think we could still sharpen that number up. You know what I mean? I think it's possible. I think with continued persistence and continued obvious blatant red pills in mainstream level, there's media anons as well, that are in the fake news media empire, and they are installed there, and they slip truths out, and they are there, and I don't know who is who, but that's what the judges say. They say they are the royal Mr. Bad News, TRDJ plus the judges. So yeah, them and Litecoin Bull, they I've always been a big fan of them, and they also have shown me a lot of appreciation and support, and they've basically said like, thank you for like doing this, like it helps us a lot. And they are allegedly connected, right, to African military and to African royalty. So that is where they get their intelligence from. And also they explain they have some sort of quantum, what you would call looking glass tech, where they can see linguistics from the future for the future. And so they know the news before the news is the news, because they can read the amount that a word repeats on X, for example, or on wherever, the internet. They can have that data and study the linguistics, and they can predict what is coming in the future, because all the devices are connected to the internet, right? Phones, computers, TVs, everything is listening. Assume your smart TV and your iPhone camera, assume they can see you whenever they like, and they hear everything. They got everything. They have all the intelligence agencies that have access if they need authorization. If they declare you a terrorist group, if you're affiliated with a terrorist group such as QAnon, for example, it's like, that's how simple it is, right? Or the Proud Boys or whatever. And there's also those organizations on the other side, right? Antifa and BLM and stuff like that, right? So these are all methodologies that they program the people with, and they propagandize the people with, and they help the people unknowingly push a narrative, an agenda that would be their own demise, right?
Let me interrupt
pushing
you there.
Civil war, right? And as Dr. Jan said, that's why they didn't release the election results. That's why they didn't release the Kraken that the military intelligence battalions had, because on the 2020 election, because it would cause a civil war. People would start shooting each other. They would be breaking into each other's house and doing much worse, because they're that TDS syndrome, which is a real thing. They're that triggered that they can't stand to live in a world where another so they have to learn the hard way. They have to be shown with a fake president, with other fake replaced politicians, doubles, crisis actors, central casting. Trump has said central casting too many times to keep track of, right? Speaking of comms, he just made the Z symbol yesterday or whenever in one of his rallies. Okay, it was not a Q this time. It was a very sharp Z, and then he drew the sword like straight, like through the Z.
Catch me up on this, Op. I'm not familiar with the Z symbol.
It was just the other day. It was like yesterday. So basically, the Z symbol is the one that the JFK Jr. had tattooed on his arm. That we showed right. in the previous podcast. We would have scrolled through it, right?
I do remember that.
Yeah, so that is the Z Special Operations Unit, right? That, I don't know why would he have that tattoo on him, right? Anyway, why is Trump making that symbol? I have a theory. I will share it with you. Basically, could be he's giving a hat tip to VK's host, who calls himself Z, right? It's just a little coincidental that out of nowhere, VK had to leave us. He had to disappear. And then the censorship started more heavily. And then, he claimed he was an AI LARP, right? like Grok almost, right? So could there be a connection there? And then VK's host appears out of nowhere. Z is his name, right? That's what he goes by. And now Trump makes the Z sign, like, you know, pretty soon after the arrival of the Z account, right? So it is something to keep an eye on. Like, something is definitely up, because VK has proven himself over his comment history. He has proven himself that he has to be someone, you know, with some sort of high level information for him to
Well,
be
let me interrupt you there.
doing these things he does, right? The comms, you know,
Let,
and
let,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
let me jump in there real quick, because you brought up two things, and before we get too far away from them, I want to get Dr. Jan's thoughts or information on here. So a few minutes ago, and I'll include that clip of Trump doing the Z, because I know everybody's gonna be like, I want to see it, so I'll make sure we play that so everyone can see. You earlier you had brought up, you know, intel, and then also with propaganda, and I mean, right now we are, you know, we always say information war, and I tell everybody, like, really understand the context of what that means, you know, because we say it all the time. We hear words like intel, we hear words like propaganda, we hear information war, but sometimes we use it so much that I think people lose focus of what does that mean? Like, what does that translate into real life? And I tell people, you know, when I look at information war, this is just my opinion, I could be wrong, is I look from, you know, I was involved in a real kinetic war, you know, when we're out in Iraq in 2003. And when I was a child, you know, in middle school, I believe, yeah, it was middle school, I got to watch the first, you know, Desert Storm War. You know, I remember we had a fold out couch, and me and my cousin, you know, he'd stay over all the time. We're laying there, parents would be asleep, you know, because when it's daytime in Iraq, it's nighttime over here. And we'd be watching CNN or MSNBC or, you know, whatever it was. And you saw this big map, you know, this of the whole entire campaign, you know, these forces moving here and these forces here. And, you know, the perspective of people back in the States was you saw this huge operation the way it looked. And then I found myself in Iraq, right? And in this war, but not from the perspective of what the audience got to see. I got to see it from the perspective of boots on the ground, you know, Marine infantry unit. All of a sudden, we're one of those little arrows that everybody gets to see. And when we were in that and we would get our intel briefs, our mission briefs, you don't get everything that's going on. You don't know the big picture. You just know, here's your objective. This is the expected casualty. And here's what we're going, and we're going to go and mission accomplish. And you just trust that everybody else is just doing their job, not knowing what that big picture looks like. And so I say all that to say this. When we say we're this information war, I believe all the rules of war still apply. We're just dealing with it in information, psyop, psychological, etc., versus, you know, the mass kinetic stuff, because you can still lead to kinetic things in an information war. And so I see us as, whether it's influencers or podcasters or what you're doing, Op, or what you're doing, Jan, is we're all these like little individual arrows that's moving this entire movement towards, you know, whatever that end game looks like. And we all have our vision of what we hope it looks like. But at the same time, you know, there's white hats and there's black hats and gray hats, you know, for those that have read, you know, General Flynn's book on, you know, 5th generation warfare and AI, you've learned all these different terminologies that, you know, people should be familiar with. When you see this and that explanation of what I have, Dr. Jan, what do you say to the listener that's just like, well, now I'm really confused, you know, like, what does this look like? You know, who should I rely on, you know, for intel, you know, because I don't have time, because, you know, in the real world, people are like, you know, Alpha, you know, I'm going to work, you know, my wife's doing this, I don't have time to sit there and vet everything I'm hearing. Like, you know, there's an element of trust I need to have.
Yeah.
How do people establish that trust, Doc? And what are some tips that you can give them to make sure they're not trusting the wrong people?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because I've had a lot of DMs about that recently. And what I recommend is to go to 3 years ago of when Mel K started, because Mel K continues to do some of the best research. She reads 12 different newspapers from around the globe. But if they go to the earlier ones, she talks about the Bilderberg Group. She talks about the Club of Rome. She explains about the Cabal. And people need to have that foundation to understand what we've been subjected to and her insight. And I'm sure there are some other people as well, but I think Mel K has done the best in educating people about who the players are and what kind of damage they've done and who they interact with. So that's the first thing. The second thing I tell people is that trust their intuition. And intuition is a combination of your thinking, your feelings, your emotions, your sense of things. Basically, our body can react to things. When I used to do these exercises with executives, way back, there were 2 posters of Farrah Fawcett Majors from Charlie's Angels. And one of them was a very sincere smile, and one of them wasn't. And I would hold each of those posters up, and I would have them have their arm out, and I'd say resist. And then before they looked at the poster, and then I would put the poster up and I could just pull their arm down. And that was how I was explaining when we go to cocktail parties, or we used to with lockdown, we don't do any of that anymore. But why do you stand with your arm out at least 6 inches so that you can protect your sphere? And think about when someone gives you a dirty look. You feel it. You feel it instantly. And then we would often say, if somebody gave us a yes, but when we were doing training, you need 3 attaboys, meaning the minute that negative comes in, the only way you're going to change that group or prevent it from going into the negative is to then get 3 positive comments. So I try to explain that our intuition is very much like a car. It's solid, it's got all the components, but a car needs a driver. And that is our rational thinking. That is that's sometimes where Satan comes in and screws us up as well. But it is where we check things out. But in the end, what does your gut tell you? What does your body tell you? What do you feel in your heart as well? And we haven't been raised to trust ourselves enough. And you really cannot believe in God if you don't trust yourself. Because if you trust yourself, then you trust the belief that you have that there is a higher power. There is something bigger than you. So that's where I begin. The other thing is that I try to get people to get rid of their expectations. Expectations are different than hope. And how it's different is I had to go through my own 2 hopium depressions. And for 2022, I was thinking, justice finally is going to be served, because we were told justice would be served at the inauguration, and that didn't happen. And, we all got depressed about it. And then I'm really thinking, we're going to get them, and this is going to really be good. And that didn't happen. And it wasn't till a few months later on the task force that they told us they were getting the low-hanging fruit, and they weren't going to prevent the steal. They weren't going to prevent the cheating as they had done in 2016. Mm-hmm. And so I really needed to have, I call it my coming to Jesus meeting with myself. And I had to look at the fact that based on all the information I took in, I created a script of how I thought things should be, or how I expected them to happen. And I had to let go of all of that, because unless I wrote this script out and I gave it to everyone else in the world, they'd have their own script and they would see it differently. And so I had to let go of having any expectations. I still hold a lot of hope that in God's time, justice will be served. But it's the same thing as when people, I've had patients that have revengeful thoughts. And I say, you know what? It's not worth it, because you might be feeling revengeful, but the other person doesn't know it. So it will come in God's time. And I actually had fired Cambridge Analytica, which was the big exposure with Facebook. And then when the investigative reporters at a British station were talking about it, I called my producer up there and I said, they're missing certain things. And it turned out that peripherally, I was connected to a lot of those people. But then when Alexander Nix got fired, I looked up and I said, God, thank you. He got it back. Because one of the reasons I fired him was he said, this was for Republicans overseas. He said, well, you're not our top paying client, so you'll just have to wait. Wait a minute, you courted us. You wanted Republicans overseas. And so I said, forget it. We're not doing business anymore together. But it was actually, for me, more satisfying to know someone else did it and I found out about it, instead of having to hold those kinds of feelings in me. And so I want people to listen to others, but if they trust themselves, they have a good screening ability. You know if something doesn't feel right. You absolutely know. And you don't have to have the answers. You know, some people are saying, oh, well, I want to see the proof. Well, you know, there's a lot of proof out there. It's just disjointed. But what our intuition is logic scrambled up. And so when we get that sense, it is the things coming together that we are sensing very, very well. And if you're not comfortable with someone, like I get a lot of requests for interviews and I don't watch certain podcasters because I couldn't stand them. So I'm not going to let them interview me. You know, I mean, really.
Well, there's some lying shills out there. There's some lying shill podcasts that have spoken quite ill about you.
I want to get to the shills. Before I do though, to something you said, Doc, and to rewind, and that's why. And I don't know if you guys caught it. Maybe the audience will. But I said, you know, what does the end game look like? Because we all have a different version of that, and because. You know, when people reach out to me, because sometimes I'll get my audience and they'll email me because they're super mad about somebody that I interviewed. And I ask them, well, one of the things that I think sets this podcast aside from so many others is I'm not telling you what you have to believe. I'm not telling you what I want you to believe. My job is to put information out there. And then, like you said, Doc, you know, trust that everything you just explained, that intuition, you know, your own life experience, to see how that resonates with you. It's not my job to. I'm not trying to make sheep. I want to make lions. You know,
Right.
You know, it's you hear what was it on? I think it was CNN when it's like we're supposed to tell you what to believe. No, we're not. But that's not how this works. You know, that's what got us into this problem. But I'll challenge these people, whether it's by phone or email. I say, well, that's what the end game looks like, how you want to see it. But now step back. And what is the end game that benefits all of humanity looks like? Because chances are they're not going to be the same. And when people start looking at, okay, it's not just what's best for me and my household. What does it look like when it's the best for all of humanity, including the people you don't like?
Right.
What does that look like? Because everybody forgets, you know, when the dust settles and we win, and I know we will win because my faith is in God and God does not lose. When the dust settles, we all still got to live together. You know, that's God's version of winning doesn't mean we got what we want and they didn't. God's version of winning is all of humanity coming together as a collective to make humanity better for humanity. That includes the people we don't like. That includes the people that have persecuted you. Now, granted, there are some sins that people are going to have to answer to, and that's his job up there. Our job is to expose it and to prevent people from becoming victims of it. But to that, how much, because, and you can correct me if I say this wrong, Doc, there's propaganda. Like, we all know that. We see that playing in real time with the media. But is there also good propaganda in order to make sure we do protect people or send people down certain rabbit holes to uncover the truth? Or is this all propaganda bad?
Well, generally propaganda is a form of somebody trying to emotionally and mentally fool you. Yeah, it's designed to have you not think for yourself. But is there good information coming out, or do you look for good signs? One of the examples I give is that people say, well, Trump had supported McCarthy. Why did he support him? I said, because he had to be exposed. That's exactly why he supported him, because he knew that even though McCarthy had promised to go by the Freedom Caucus's additional rules, he's always been a duplicitous panderer. He'd never be able to. And so he knew that because only one person now could kick him out or get him to vacate the speakership, that is a sign. So it's more, but you also use the word what. And what is it that you expect? It's when you start thinking how it should happen that you get in trouble. So I can't wait for justice, but I had to get rid of all my fantasies of seeing some of these people put in handcuffs and imagining the tribunals and watching their heads be chopped off or shot, or that is totally irrelevant. I know that the end game is justice. It is to bring people together. It is to make sure that we all can function very well without a lot of stress. Yeah. And that, if you just focus on that, then you can feel a sense of calm. It's when, or often what I describe is that if conservatives and liberals were all at Disney World, you would find the conservatives on Main Street in Adventureland and Frontierland. But because of the way the liberals think, you have to go to Fantasyland and Tomorrowland to find them. And that is how they operate. You know, it shouldn't be this way. What do you mean it shouldn't be that way? You know, you shouldn't be like that. And the fact that they think they can understand us better than we understand ourselves is really just a projection. It is when they are saying you are this way, it really should have the pronoun of I am this way. And they reveal that. I mean, right now, Charlie Ward and I are being lambasted by Cliff High. And I said something to Charlie. I told Charlie, and he said, who's Cliff High? He didn't even know who he was. And first off, Cliff High accuses me of being a psychiatrist. I'm not an MD. I'm a PhD. It's called Piled, Higher, and Deeper. That's what it stands for. But, you know, then that goes on. That's telling me a lot about Cliff High. Why is he feeling even threatened by me? I mean, we are completely different people with different expertise and everything else. But I have noticed that when people respond to him, they are seeing through it. And that's what I look for. I think people are
So
far.
it's almost like exposure through exposure.
Yes, yes. And we have 7 different types of intelligence. And I have an N-1 memory. So if you ask me, I'd probably only come up with 6. But the 2 I want to talk about are interpersonal, my ability to understand other people, and intrapersonal, my ability to understand myself. Now, the liberals don't have their intrapersonal going on, and therefore they're very weak on the interpersonal. They have been conditioned to just go by their feelings and think that their feelings make it factual. Or if someone says, well, this is what I think you are. Well, just because you think it doesn't make it so. But they think, I've thought it, I'm saying it, and if you disagree with me, you need to be annihilated. Annihilated. Not only criticized, annihilated. And they're not happy people with themselves. And between our schooling that has done that to them, between I put the cabal, I put all those people, I call them the evil group, wanting to destroy our soul, wanting to destroy our sanity. I mean, why did the women's movement have to make men bad? It makes no sense to me. And it absolutely makes no sense to me. But
It reminds me of this poison, and I've seen it so much in society, especially in my career, where you have this ideology or this mindset that you rise by pulling others down versus just rising above where you're already at.
right.
And it is just it's so poisonous when you see that, and unfortunately, especially right now on social media, and I think it's going to get worse, unfortunately. There's this massive attack on everybody, people with notoriety, people without notoriety. And
Yep.
it goes back to what you're saying. Well, I feel this way, and since you don't, you're this, and this.
Oh,
And
yeah.
people are saying some ugly things about each other. And to me, all that breeds is bad energy, and for those people that
Exactly.
subscribe to
Yep.
your
Yep.
global consciousness, and this ascension to higher
Yeah.
frequencies, because people forget how much of our body's made of water. And go
Let-
look at frequency and energy, how it affects water. Like, there's so much more than meets the eye when you look at just the science of ourselves, not even just the brain or the mental side of it. And people don't realize, like, you're facilitating more bad, more darkness, when a lot of times it's just a simple explanation. Like, just ask me the question, let me
Right.
answer it, and maybe you agree, maybe you don't, but
Right.
there's not this sinister plot every
Yeah,
time we disagree.
I got
But
something to say on what.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let me just hit it a bit, because I got a list of things after I've hearing you two speak. I have a list of things I have to just quickly hit. So basically, you just mentioned the frequency, right? So when they come at you and they're not on board with it, they're fighting it, try to help them still. Try to make a connection with them, because we are all part of the collective consciousness, and intuition is connected to that, and vibrational frequency is connected to that. So that's why try to help them be with a more positive response. Try to still help them if you're going to spend time on them, instead of engaging in that negative energy. Don't
Right.
engage in the low vibrational looshing and negative energy fuel. Instead, fuel it with some positivity and some love, because love is key. Light and love, for sure, 100%. And basically, I believe the bioweapon is connected to this, as well as an option for them to opt out of life without blatantly ending themselves, but instead by taking endless bioweapons. If about going to the future and about expectations, right? So they have the opportunity to still go and take more bioweapons, and they're slowly killing themselves, surely killing themselves, and preventing the ability to have children, right? So they're ending their line of procreation. These people who have this train of thought, okay, the transgender, satanic, Nazi world order, this ideology, the whole wokeism, liberalism, globalism, communism, socialism, this whole mentality is basically they have the option to, if they want to continue to believe the propaganda, they have the option to continue taking the injections, and they will just kill themselves off. And then that gap, that 20-30% will shrink. There will be less of them and more awake people who are conservative, who have common sense, who have intuition, who have a higher vibration. So what I'm basically getting at is the lower vibrational people are basically given the option with free will to exit by, you know, taking the injection and just disappearing, basically.
But they're not consciously aware that they're
don't know.
making that choice.
Exactly. It's a subconscious. It is a psychological thing. It is psychological warfare. It is information warfare. It is spiritual warfare. It is genetic bio warfare. So it is all of the above, irregular warfare. And on that note, the fourth PSYOP group released 2 videos, one Ghost in the Machine and another one, both on their YouTube and both on their X. And those are a big red pill because they're showing you the propaganda of the fake moon, and they're showing it to you right in your face, and they're talking about the ghost in the machine, and it's a ghost in the TV, you know, and they're trying to show the people, hey, some propaganda has been given to you for the last few years or your whole life. You know, are you waking up yet? Do you see it yet? We are doing it too now. We're doing it as well as white hat propaganda. And this brings me to the movie Leave the World Behind, right? So take this in. Executive produced by Barack Obama and Big Mike, Michael LaVaughn Robinson, right? His husband. So the deal is they're dead. So because we know they're dead, and because we know they've been replaced by doubles, we know these are white hat operators who are in their position, who slipped comms and messages and hints into the movie to help the normies, who are maybe more even on the left side, who might have watched this movie, to help them understand. Be prepared. Eventually, when this does end, when this war does end, there will have to be a blackout, and there will have to be an emergency broadcast, and there is still arrests ongoing, and there will be more arrests because the sealed indictment list is very large, and it's getting bigger and bigger. If you ever check it, it keeps growing, the sealed indictment tracker. And also, just because it's growing, it doesn't mean other indictments are not being unsealed and handled upon and acted upon at the military level, as Dr. Jan has already confirmed for us from her sources. She has already confirmed Navy JAG activity on the waters, right? So
Yep.
that blew my mind when she said that. I was like, okay, well, there we go, we're done. Like, we already know what's going on behind the scenes, right? So rest assured, with a few red pills I can give to people, I literally give them a few red pills, some involving Dr. Jan, and basically after that they're like, okay, wow, I'm back, like I have hope again, I have faith again, like you totally changed my life, like you saved my life from depression. That, like, this is what people are saying to me when they learn what is actually going on, that is not being shown, right? Instead, we're being shown propaganda, right? So instead, but like I said, there is propaganda from both sides now, right? So the white hats get to slip in their information as well. So Leave the World Behind, they're basically showing, be prepared, have some food, canned food ready, and have, you know, water ready for you know, a potential blackout. We don't know when, right? That's why you shouldn't have expectations that, oh, it's going to be like, you know, this fake Q count site online. It's fake, right? They're just going to keep extending the timer for weeks and weeks and weeks. QOfficial.net, right? It's totally fake, totally 100% grift. If you look at the code, you can see the code has a merchandise shopping center set up, and they're just waiting for it to go live. Maybe they won't, maybe they will, you know, but it's in the code already for the website. And so basically, I think I covered everything I wanted to say there, so I can hand it back over to you, Dr. Jan. I see you wanted to say something there.
Well, what I wanted to say is the Barbie film was also a white hat.
Yes.
100%. And yep. And 2 of my neighbors were in it.
Oh, well,
yeah.
That's a
and I had to watch it 3 times because I didn't recognize them at first, and it wasn't till the film came out that they could post how they looked in the film. And so one was the doctor, and one was one of the dancers in the cowboy outfit, and a few others. But yeah, and that at first the conservatives were so down on it, but it was guided. If you just looked at what it was saying, and it was telling men also, you have to be your own person. It's not like you're nothing without a woman. I mean, we were raised, you're nothing without a man. And it was clearing some of those messages up, the conflicts between mothers and daughters. At first, because I had Barbies and I'm watching, and I wasn't really comfortable because Midge was never pregnant. So how could they tell me in the film she was pregnant? You know? But then once I sat back and really looked at it, I thought, this is fabulous. And the first woman to direct that, it hit $1 billion in sales.
Wow.
Now I'm curious, and now I gotta go watch it.
Yeah, now that I've heard you
Now I'm
give
curious.
approval, I have to watch it too now. Because
Definitely. You know, and really look at how when Barbie meets the young girls, and the young girls hate her and are angry at her because what she's done. I mean, the interactions and the lines, and then you do have to look at Ken, because he starts out kind of like this helpless milquetoast who's just so in love with her, and then he begins to find himself, and she is encouraging him to be that much separate and stronger.
Well, let me do this. Well, let me ask you guys this first. You guys okay with 10 more minutes?
Of course.
Sure.
Okay. Just because I was looking at the clock, I'm like, oh, we pushed
What's
on.
time right now? You know what this is gonna do for people,
Time flies when you're having a good time.
Yeah, no, I know.
But I do want to, and listen, you guys know I'll bring you guys back anytime. You know, my platform's always open to either of you guys, and maybe we get Nino next time to show up. You know, because I know you're
okay. Maybe we can run it without. We don't really need, you know.
Well,
he's my brother.
Not up. When you were talking about the frequency, someone just sent me a picture. They are in Guatemala, in Tikal, and their guide took them to where the energy frequency was really high, and they had light bulbs, and the light bulbs lit from the frequency.
Oh, yep. Yeah. Oh, it's like the Tesla Tech free energy. It's in the ether. It's in the air. Like, it's right there.
Man,
it's
I
everywhere.
went. Somebody told me about that, and that, because my attitude now is I never discount anything. I say, let me go look into that, and I went and looked into it. And I found, you know, a lot of do-it-yourself things that you could do. Now, be careful. Watch these things, and they put these safety things. But, you know, simple drone, you know, copper wire that runs up there, this registered, and it's just like there's electricity that's in our atmosphere that changes, you know, at different elevations, things that you'd never would have fathomed, or you would have been like, no, it's just not possible, but it is. I want to give you a chance. Is there any question that you want to ask Dr. Jan that you haven't had a chance to yet? And then after that, I'll get to, I don't think we'll have a chance for all of them, but maybe I'll ask 2 or 3 that the audience had sent ahead of time.
Yeah. Just on the note you had said there, what's it called? You know what? Now it's slipped me.
Well, I'll give you a chance to think about it. So you did bring something up that the audience is probably not familiar with. Dr. Jan, you mind explaining with the jag on the water, what that's kind of about, so people kind of know what Op was referencing?
It's the judicial side of the Navy, and they are handling the tribunals. There are ships off the coast of Australia, in the Mediterranean. I think it's around Italy, because there are a lot of arrests going on in Italy as well. There is one in the UK where the Titanic took off from, and there's one off the coast of Japan. I know there are several others, but those have been moving. They are not stationary, where those 4 that I just mentioned have been stationary for more than 2 years. And it is it's justice. It's my justice that's happening.
Yes. So that's just what I was saying before about the expectations. People think it's going to be in the forefront, like they're going to show it on TV or something right now. No, that's not the way it is. We're at war. They're handling it behind the scenes, and they're doing it clandestine, smoothly, by the books. They get their tribunal, swift executions. I can't say it. So the thing is, they don't come back from Navy JAG, is the rumor, right? Once they go there, that's...
Yep. Obama tried to have an executive order that gave the Gitmo people the opportunity to choose whether they wanted a civil or a military. Thank goodness that didn't go through, because the civil laws, the minute the military takes you, forget it. Absolutely forget it. There's no innocent until proven guilty or whatever. Yeah. Are there other questions, Alpha, that...
Yeah, so there's quite a few, but I know we don't have a lot of time. So I'm going to ask two audience ones, but then I have one because Alpha's going to be greedy. I want to ask a question too. I'll give them to you, and then I'll let you pick the order. So my question first is, right now we see all these attacks on Trump. I mean, you see what Colorado just did, and you had Tucker, and Tucker even asked Trump, and then he's mentioned it on some other podcasts, that it's not too far-fetched to think that they actually tried to make an assassination attempt on, our former president, who I happen to love. So is there any real concern that we should have there, or is that something that's it, like, don't stress out about it? As we've heard before, he's insulated, he's protected. So that's my question. And then, so Squirrel with 3 Qs.
Well, let me do one question at a time. Because,
Okay.
I told you I'm an N-1 memory, and so then I might not remember. When it comes to that, it's one of my biggest worries. I just get a knot in my stomach. I don't know if you remember the February 2021, when he first went back to Mar-a-Lago, that there was a drone that tried to assassinate him. And he was very cool about it, in that he didn't want the Secret Service to bring the police or anything. So if anyone wants to check this out, it was reported to the Palm Beach police that there was some kind of gun firing, but I was told at that point, it was the 67th thwarted attempt of an assassination.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's a lot of times, is what I also have heard.
Well, and this MMA fight in Vegas, I guess that's where it was. He had wanted to walk. I don't follow MMA, so I don't know the name of the guy. But yeah, so I apologize to anyone who follows MMA. But Trump was going to walk him into the cage, but there were 100 Secret Service at that event, and so Trump couldn't do that. It would have put him at too much of a risk. I don't like that Tucker or anyone is talking about assassination.
Yeah.
Right? Because the minute you say it, it gets in someone's mind.
It's bad manifestation.
Yes. So that is very much something that I cannot tell you how many people, how many law enforcement, how many Secret Service are on top of it. They hate him. They don't hate him. They fear him, because, as he said, we've got it all. And he said that at the beginning, at the very, very beginning. And I don't know if you're aware that the military had wanted to oust Obama, but when they could convince Trump to run, then they didn't have to do that. And they knew, I mean, we've known that there's been fraud in our elections forever and ever and ever, but one of the reasons that Hillary Clinton couldn't come down was that they never expected to lose, because they have always successfully cheated.
Rigged
I
it,
mean,
yeah.
it's kind of an oxymoron. And so that is also why 13848, written on September 12th, 2018, had talked about foreign interference. But the foreign interference also means that they were in the District of Columbia, because that is a sovereign entity.
Yep.
And so it was covered, and they predicted it, they knew it was going to happen, and they needed someone strong enough. If you go back to 1999, Tim Russer interviewed Trump. It's a half an hour. It's fabulous. And Trump had left the Republican Party and joined the Reform Party. When you listen to him and how he outlines all of the different issues the country was facing, but he was also asked if he was going to run for president. And he said what we heard him say in 2016, "I'll only run if I know I can win."
Great.
And that was because they knew of all of the different cheating that goes on.
Yep.
Well, I'll finish that thought, because I'm a person that believes in, we can manifest things. So, and I agree, that's a dangerous conversation. So everybody just picture Trump's safety as we conclude that.
Absolutely. Pray for it. Pray for his safety. See a white light around him. Yes, absolutely.
So this next
they're going to
question,
come for him very hard. I did actually remember a question I had.
I'll go for it.
Yeah.
So, regarding the 2024 election, right? Are you under the opinion or the impression that maybe they will be doing some rigging again and some exposing of it again, or how do you have any vibe of what's going to be coming for next year, like particularly?
I don't do predictions because I don't have a sense. But what I can tell you is, one, that there are different factors that I'm looking at. Is the quantum financial system going to be put in? How will that help? Are we going to see the Supreme Court step up and release the J6 prisoners and the loss, the criminal charges against Trump just go away? How soon is that likely to happen? We have the Brunson issue on the table. There's a lot of gossip about it right now. And I actually the other day was on the phone with someone and Lloyd Brunson, but he was at TPUSA and couldn't talk. So I don't have any confirmation on it, even though the other person asked him directly what's going on with the Supreme Court. But that hasn't died. It's still very much alive. So if the Supreme Court decides that 385 of our politicians are going bye-bye and never can come back to DC, and Biden and Harris are out, does that mean the military steps in? Does that mean Trump comes back? What does it mean? We don't know. We don't know. But we have to watch those factors. That's what I'm looking at. That's actually what my task force is also looking at, because we want to get a sense of kind of the collective unconscious that people pick up on things.
Chills. I'm getting mega chills right now. This is some fire right now. This is going to be big time.
People underestimate collective consciousness, and they have no idea how powerful that is.
Absolutely.
She basically told us they're watching, they're taking note, they're studying, and they're going to do it how it most smoothly will complement the collective. That's what she basically just said. I translated it into...
Okay. And it's not connected necessarily to how awake people are. It is connected to how many of the bad guys they've put out of business.
Apprehended, handled, executed, arrested, get them for
Right.
life.
Not
etc.
sponsoring BLM, not sponsoring Antifa. You know, it's who were the puppeteers, and they are having to deal with the puppeteers. And the more and more that they can knock out the puppeteers, the closer we will get to seeing some things publicly.
Mm-hmm. And do you believe, speaking of publicly, do you believe that the Trump lawsuits could potentially be used to introduce evidence legally in our favor in exposing the 2020 election, such as the Kraken from the 305th Military Intelligence Battalion? Do you believe that it might be in the plan, or any comment on that?
That's what I said in the August 3rd interview that I did, that they have the goods. And what was great about the criminal charges without it being for treason or sedition meant that due process, and he could call his own witnesses, he can present his own evidence. And so I'm very encouraged about that. And in some respects, if the Supreme Court ends up ruling that they throw out the Jack Smith lawsuit, then we have Georgia. And now that Kemp has come out and said over 17,000 ballots weren't valid, were fraudulent. So, and again, people, just listen to, where was it? New Mexico, a judge had just ruled that one of the elections had been fraudulent. You have to look for those little signs. It's kind of like a domino effect, but we need a lot more dominoes.
Like the Vax lawsuit from Ken Paxton in Texas, right? It's a domino. It's a one piece, right? That one lawsuit, that might inspire other attorney generals to have a lawsuit, or other countries, or other whatever. And it might, the goal here, I'll say it right now, is we need class action lawsuits against all the big pharma, every big pharma who is involved in the bioweapon, right?
Yes.
And by the way, Mossad and Anthony Fauci and the NIH are directly involved, because a paper was released from a whistleblower who worked there, and he said under Anthony Fauci's supervision from 1988 onwards, he said there was Mossad agents specifically working within the NIH to develop bioweapons for clandestine kills that appeared as a normal natural death. That was specifically their agenda, right? So, you know, anyway, this is just some relation. Yeah, go ahead.
Ralph Barrick, in 1999, had succeeded in taking SARS-CoV-1 and infecting human lungs. And by 2002, he patented it. Even when Obama stopped the gain of function, Fauci gave Barrick and Peter Daszak at Echo Health Alliance a reprieve from it, and still fed them all the money that needed to be fed. But when someone mentions Fauci's name, that really, I have never disliked someone as much as I disliked him, because I was going through my psychological training in San Francisco during the AIDS epidemic. For 7 years, he would not approve any kind of medication. And then when he finally did, he approved the cancer medication taken off the market that had been killing people. And When the Band Played On is a fabulous, fabulous film. And what I find very interesting in it is that Fauci isn't even mentioned.
You know, if there's one name that gets under my skin, you know, it's most definitely Fauci. Not just because of what we all have seen him do, but just me knowing, you know, I've developed a really close friendship, you know, with Dr. Judy Mikovits, and just knowing what she was subjected to, you know, through him and the NIH. It's just like, you know, it's people go watch some of the shows.
Stealing her research with her partner, giving it to Gallo. Gallo then slowing down solving this issue for 6 months so that he could recreate his experiments and then claim it. But then what Fauci did is that, oh, we've discovered AIDS at a big conference, an international conference, and then Fauci put a law, basically a law in that you would not get your funding if you challenged what we have now said. So I mean, there have been many doctors who have challenged it, but he's ruined their careers.
And that concept, if you challenge it, you know, and a lot of people may not know this, and she shared it on a show with me. That's why I don't mind saying it publicly. But when her husband passed away, they wanted to say that the cause of death was COVID, which she knows it's not. And so because she's been fighting the death certificate, they've been withholding, you know, the money due to her from him. So literally trying to force her into financial struggles to make her commit to getting that on. And she's a fighter. She's a hell of a fighter. And she stood her ground. You know, I need to reach out to her to see where she's at on that. I know we're running out of time here, so let me get to these two real quick. This one comes from Squirrel with 3 Qs, everybody, probably in the live chat right now. Dr. Jan, what can you tell us about the DoD task force more, and do they have concerns with another pandemic in 2024?
Well, we don't look into the pandemic issues. I think that what we need to look at for that is when you think about 2017, Bill Gates and Fauci said, oh, Trump is going to have to deal with a pandemic. They are not clairvoyant. How did they know that?
I know.
Yeah.
I know how. Because in 2014, they administered the mRNA injections to the soldiers. That's how they knew it was coming. Because in 2014, Tom Renz released this information, and this is up warp speed, basically, to expose it all. And basically, Obama and Biden and Fauci were the ones who were administering the COVID injections first, before Trump ever even was in the picture. So take that in, right? And I'll hand it back.
Yes, exactly. So in other words, you've just confirmed that it was a plandemic and not a pandemic.
Bingo.
I know that they're trying to say perhaps there's another one coming, but I think people are so wise. I mean, how was there no flu during COVID? I mean,
the stats.
You know, it's just so fascinating to me. How could it not happen? So we don't talk about that. We don't deal with that, but I think it's important to pay attention to it. And I know some people say Gates is dead, but is the imitation Gates still trying to work with the cabal to reduce the population?
Yeah,
or is that how it has to appear?
And I'll add, you know, for my newbies in the audience that are barely swallowing the red pill for the first time, no clones, no. Listen, take a deep breath for a second, okay? Do me a favor, take a deep breath, and you can go search, you know, the devil's poison we call Google, and you will see we've been using clones in the government for decades. This is not conspiracy theory. This is 100% legitimate. Our government has talked about it. So, you know, I know it sounds crazy and it sounds Hollywood, but we've been doing it for a long time.
Research clonate.
Think of the old Mission Impossible. I mean, the original series. They had those masks on. It wasn't the actor that they were pretending to be that stepped in for it. Those were the masks that were going on. Yep.
Absolutely. And then the last question, and this comes from one of our loyal people, Lou AZ. That's AZ. Love Dr. Jan. I am worried about Carl Rogers. Does she have concerns with him or the CIA MK Ultra stuff?
You know, no, I don't. And the reason I don't is that because someone pointed out to me, I didn't know he had been part of that MK Ultra, but he was such a humanist that there is no way he would have been part of it. And I briefly scanned what experiments he was involved in, but Albert Ellis trained me as well, and he was, close to that. But when you look at what they were able to develop as their theories and to bring people around, the person-centered approach. I'll never forget the first time that I was working with him. We were doing a 14-day live-in leadership. And so everyone gathered that first evening, and someone said, "So when is Dr. Rogers going to speak?" And he said, "Well, when I have something relevant to say to all of you," because it was person-centered and he wanted people to take the initiative and learn how to take the initiative. If anyone has any other information of what he might have done with MK Ultra, it won't change my opinion of him, because I started working with him in the early 80s, but that was in the 50s, and I think late 50s, early 60s. Yeah, but I'd like to know about it.
Well, I'll land with this, you guys. OpCue, Dr. Jan. It was nice to finally hear you do some laughs, OpCue. You're so serious the last time that I had you on, brother.
Well, we were kind of doing a walkthrough on like a couple threads. Like it wasn't really like chitter chat. Like
No.
like you guys are talking, and I'm like, oh snap, I gotta say something. I gotta let the people know. I'm like waiting over here to get in there. I'm like having a good time. It's like this is gonna be big. I'm telling you, people they're gonna love.
Oh, it is. Oh, it is.
It's major. Yes. You don't even know.
Well, with that, you guys, my favorite part of the show, you guys get to tell everybody where to find you, where to support you, or anything you got going on that you want my audience to know about, because they're going to be like, okay, now that I know who Dr. Jan is, I want more of this. Where do I find it? So, Dr. Jan, where can people find you?
Okay, but can I also show them when we talk about, let me get rid of that.
That's Biden.
That's, yes. So when they're talking about the masks, it very much is true. Okay, where you can find me. Biz Shrink, BIZ_shrink at Twitter. Real Dr. Jan at Truth, and drjan.substack.com is where my articles are. And I am working on one right now because things are going to get worse before they get better. And I am going to give you not the prescription, but the outline of how you can deal with adversity and make sure that you keep being resilient no matter what difficulties come about.
Keep your head up. Hold the line.
Absolutely.
Bye. Yeah. I got you.
Where can people find you, brother?
Oh, yeah. So for me, basically the main thing for me is the link tube that will connect you to me in every which way. So that one there is link-tube.com/OperationQ, or also it's censored as well on Facebook and YouTube. So you can spell it like this: giveit.link/OperationQ. So from that link, you click it. You can access, if you wanted to book a session with me, a one-on-one. I do basically lessons like training, consulting, coaching, red pilling, showing visuals. Whatever people need, I answer their questions. People who are very confused, they come to me. I give them a one-on-one session. So we can do it's just like this, right? It's just like a podcast, but I'm just answering nonstop questions, and they're getting their mind blown, like to a whole new level of seeing reality, and their life has changed, like basically from there. right? And I send them the
Wow.
evidence. Yeah, like I send them the evidence with the articles I've written, which brings me to the next place where you will find my writings and my basically I give people a visual resource, for like a visual resource, a written resource, a linked resource, videos. I give them on a certain subject that I've decided to shine the light upon, and it's all there for them, right? Everything is there, right?
How do we find it?
Oh, so that's humorousmathematics.com.
Right.
So
Right.
in the Give It link and in the link tube, I have all the top red pill articles from Humorous Mathematics. They're laid out there. So there's about like 20 or 30 or I don't know how many, right? And they're the subjects. And Dr. Jen is on some of those articles. She's on video in some of those articles. And because of something that she said, which relates to that subject matter. So that's, you'll find her in one or another, basically is my point. And so.
Sorry to interrupt, but I did donate to you. And there is a promise of what we can share one day. I just want to keep that memory going.
Oh, like, of course, like I know about, there's.
Everybody listening's like, I want to know. This is what I will say. For those that are listening
just
on the
donate
podcast,
some money and you'll figure out.
for those that are listening, there you go. For those that are listening and not watching, you don't have to pull over. I'm going to make it easy for you. All the links from Dr. Jan, all the links from OpCue will be down in the description below. All you got to do is go and click on them. So don't worry, you didn't miss it. I'm going to make it easy for you guys. You guys, I run, we go commercial free. I don't interrupt my guests, and I do that so we don't mess up the flow and the synergy of the conversation. So I save my sponsors all the way towards the end of the show. So do me a favor. I'm going to break to a commercial. We'll have all of our sponsors. Then when we come back, Alpha will give you my final thoughts, and I'll let you know what we got coming up this week. So with that, Dr. Jan, OpCue, you guys have been absolutely fantastic. I can't wait for the next conversation.
Support these guys. They're important.
Are you worried about the effects that higher inflation rates will have on your investments? Are you trying to secure your retirement savings against losses, but you notice that inflation is a hot topic these days? But how dangerous are low inflation rates on your retirement savings? An inflation rate of 2% may not seem like much, but it means that prices will just about quintuple over the lifetime of the average American. And 4% average inflation rate means that something that costs $1 when they're born will cost $23 when they die. That demonstrates the danger of even low inflation rates. So when it comes to gold and inflation rates, many investors want to know whether inflation rates have an effect on gold prices. What history indicates is that over the long term, increased inflation should lead to correspondingly higher gold prices. From September 1971 to August 2020, gold grew 7.5 times as much as inflation. Not only can an investment in physical gold help protect your assets against the damage done by inflation, it can also help grow the value of your retirement portfolio over the long term. If you're looking to protect your retirement assets, why wait until stock markets crash and gold begins to rise in price?